Hello everyone, this is Evan, and I recently just got back from the Portland Regional Championships where I finished top 32 out of 1,688 players within Zoroark EX. So I'm going to be telling you guys all about the tournament. It was kind of a weird tournament for me. I ended up getting into day 2 because of a really weird situation, which I'll explain in just a little bit, but yeah, I also just hit like some weird matchups and stuff, but yeah, I ended up getting top 32, so pretty happy with that result. Um, I actually ended up bubbling out at 33rd place, but then someone in the top 8 got disqualified, so I got bumped up to top 32. But first I'm going to be going over the list. So here is the Zoroark list. There's actually a few spicy inclusions in this list. It's not exactly your standard Zoroark list, but yeah, so I'm just going to go through the cards. We have the 4-4 Zoroark line, very standard. The 3-2 Darmanitan line. I was originally going to only play 2 Darumaka's, but at the very last minute I decided I wanted the third one just because you want to have as good of a chance as possible at drawing into it early, and you also don't want to prize one. If you prize one and you only play 2, that feels really bad. The Reshiram as your other Inns attacker. We have both the Badoo and the Cleffa for our early games, and then Blood Moon as a late game attacker, and then Fez just to draw cards. You never really want to bench the Fez, because usually it is a liability, but sometimes you have to draw exactly what you need for that turn. Then for the supporters, we play the 4 Ionos, which I think is very standard in Zoroark lists, but the biggest thing that differentiates these Zoroark builds is which supporter you play alongside the Iono, and I decided to play the Research. I know that Cyrano is the build that most of the top players are playing, but I decided to play Research just because I felt like the Cyrano build just wasn't really enough to actually get you going in some situations against like turbo decks. You'd rather just have the aggressive draw support option of Research, and also if you're getting disruptive late game, or if your opponent's disrupting you with like Iono or whatever, you'd rather draw into a Research than a Cyrano, which is why I decided to play the Researches. Other than that, this is basically just the Cyrano build of Zoroark, but with Researches instead of Cyrano. And we have 2 Boss, 1 Turo, and then 1 Black Belt, which are also pretty standard in the Zoroark lists. I know that a lot of Research builds are not playing the Black Belt PAL package, but I felt like you kind of just needed it. For the Mirror, it's really good with Blood Moon Black Belt, and then also against Goldango. And then we have, just our consistency cards, 3 Puffins, 2 Ultra Balls, 2 Nest Balls, 2 Ends PP up. I was thinking about playing the third one, but I just don't think you need 3. I think 2 is fine, especially with Secret Box to search them out. Then we have 2 Night Stretchers, 2 Counter Catchers. The Secret Box is the ace spec just as a consistency card, and it can find a lot of your 1-ofs. It allows you to also go down to 1-of copies of a lot of cards like Ends PP Up, Defiance Band, stuff like that. The PAL Pad, mostly it's here to like reuse Black Belt, but you also can reuse Boss and Turo, which are very nice in some situations. For the tools, the most notable inclusion here is Rigid Band, which I don't think very many people at all play this. However, someone in my testing group actually suggested this, and it's mainly for the Joltik matchup, just so that Pikachu can't knock you out late game. However, it's useful in like a lot of situations. It didn't actually come up that much in the tournament. I thought it would come up a lot more than it actually did, but it's still a decent card overall. The Defiance Band, Power Glass, 2 Ends Castles, and then 2 League HQs. I played the 2 League HQs mostly for the Joltik matchup once again. I wanted to tech pretty hard for the Joltik matchup because that is an unfavored matchup. And the League HQ is also good against stuff like Raging Bolt as well. And then for the energies, just 6 Dark, and then 3 Reversals. I was a really big fan of the 3rd Reversal, just so you can spam Darmanitan more aggressively, and also you want to be able to draw into them when you need them. So that was the list. Now let's get into the matchups. And with this new Limitless Labs update, I can actually just show you guys the lists of my opponents. So Round 1, I hit Gardevoir. This is just the Brent Tennyson 60. And Gardevoir is one of my best matchups with this deck, so I was not mad at all to see Gardevoir in round 1. Game 1, I drew really well game 1 and got like turn 2 Flame Body Cannon to knock out both routes, and he just couldn't really recover from that. And in game 2, he prized 2 routes, so once again, he kind of just didn't set up. So kind of unfortunate draws from my opponent, not really getting set up either game, but I guess that's sometimes how it goes. And this is a pretty bad matchup for Gardevoir as well. So yeah, starting the tournament 1-0. Round 2, I hit a Slowpolt, and I think this matchup is actually very close if the Slowpolt can get set up. However, kind of just the same situation. My opponent just didn't really set up that well either game. I think game 1, he had to retreat like a Luminous Energy just to get into Badoo, which always feels kind of bad, and then he whiffed the energy attachment the next turn, I'm pretty sure. And I just got too far ahead with the N-Star Minitan. And then game 2, he also just didn't really set up that well. So, I'm 2-0 at this point. Round 3, I hit Hydragon, and this was not a matchup I was expecting to play against at all. And I did end up losing this one. I think the matchup is fine if I could actually get set up, but unfortunately, game 1, I fully bricked. And then game 2, I got to a point where I had 1 prize card, and he had 2. And he had no more draw support left on the board, so he played Iono and drew into one of his 2 counter catchers for game. Otherwise, if he whiffed, I had game for next turn. So, kind of just unfortunate the way things played out that set, but, you know, I'm 2-1 at this point. Taking a loss this early in the tournament is not ideal, but I can still get a good result if I'm able to just keep winning. Round 4, I hit a Raging Bolt. And this is another pretty close matchup. Game 1, my opponent had a pretty weak setup. I think they got down like 1 Fan Rotom, 2 Hoot Hoots turn 1, and then passed. And I drew very well at the start of the game. I was able to get like turn 2 Flame Body Cannon, knock out both Hoot Hoots. But then, after that, I Iono'd into a completely dead hand, and I went Draw Pass for 5 turns. And that gave my opponent plenty of time to start sniping with the Raging Bolt, and I just got way too far behind at that point. So, very, very unfortunate there. And then, game 2, I set up well. I was able to not brick halfway through the game, and I just won the prize trade. And then, going into game 3... my opponent made a misplay because they used Fan Rotom, got 2 Hoot Hoots and a Noctowl, and then they passed and forgot to bench the Hoot Hoots. So they made a misplay there, and I feel like I probably would have had a pretty good chance of winning if I had had a little more time, but unfortunately we ended up tying. I guess I could have scooped that game 1 a little bit earlier when I was dead drawing, but if at any point I had drawn an Iono, I immediately am back in the game. So I feel like I was probably correct to not scoop that first game, but yeah, so I just ended up tying against Raging Bolt. So I'm 2-1 at this point. Definitely not where you want to be this early in the tournament, already taking a loss and a tie. However, it's not over yet, so I'm just gonna, keep playing and see what happens. Round 5, I hit a Flareon, and I think Flareon is probably my deck's worst matchup. I think that my deck basically just gets cooked by Flareon. Like, I don't think there's that much I can do in the matchup. However, I got really lucky to be able to actually win the matchup. Game 1, it was kind of unfortunate what happened in Game 1. My opponent went first and played Brock Scouting and searched their deck, and it was their first turn. So they ended up getting a double prize loss, and they just said, yeah, we can just go ahead and go to the next game. So kind of unfortunate that my opponent got the double prize loss there, but Game 2, my opponent, I think they didn't draw the best, but I drew very well Game 2, so I was just able to win. So yeah, I was kind of surprised to actually be able to win this matchup, to be honest. This matchup's like super bad for Zoroark. So I'm 3-1-1 at this point. Round 6, I hit Pidgeot Control. And this was kind of an interesting list for the deck. Yeah, it was a pretty interesting list, and I'll be honest, I really just did not know the matchup that well at all. So, yeah, I just didn't really know the matchup. Game 1, I didn't play that well. I think I could have probably played a little bit better in Game 1. And we only had like 10 minutes left going into Game 2. And lucky for me, I think my opponent like threw pretty hard Game 2. Otherwise, I probably should have lost this match, but I was able to tie because they misplayed really hard. They used Quick Search, made a lot of other actions, and then used Quick Search again. And they got a double prize loss because of that. And I guess they were just kind of nervous because of the double prize loss or something. And they attacked with Badoo, but they also had benched Knackley, really for no reason, which allowed me to just Flame Body Cannon just to take 2 prizes, and I won because of the double prize loss. So I feel like they definitely threw, they kind of threw that one a little bit, but yeah, I guess that I'll take it because I ended up taking a tie to this matchup instead of a loss. And then here is where that weird situation that I mentioned comes up. Round 7, I'm against a Frostlass, and yeah, so Game 1, my opponent was making like several errors that messed up the board state in this match. So Game 1, they like played a research, discarded it, and then tried to take it back. And I did have to call a judge for that because, you know, it's already in the discard, it's already been played. So but when the judge came over, my opponent also did not really speak that much English, so they were having to get like translators involved and stuff, which definitely took up quite a bit of time. But the judges ruled that my opponent could take back the research, and they just got a warning, just to, I guess, be more careful about discarding the card that you know you want to play or something. But that took like several minutes for them to decide that, so we got like an 8-minute time extension or something. And then in Game 2, my opponent had, like halfway through Game 2, my opponent had a Monkey Dory that had 90 damage on it, and no Bravery Charm, and he had 2 Frostlasses set up. So going into my turn, I already knew that I was going to just let that Monkey Dory die to the Frostlass damage, so I knocked out, like, I think a Badoo and another Monkey Dory, or maybe like a Frostlass and a Monkey, not really sure what, but that Monkey Dory was supposed to die to damage, and my opponent put the damage on everything else except for that Monkey Dory, and then promoted that Monkey Dory and drew his card. And I was like, hey, this was supposed to be knocked out, but you have seen your card already. So we had to call a judge over to get that settled, and my opponent ended up getting a double prize loss for that one, because they had already seen their card, technically, before promoting. So they got a double prize loss for that, and they just scooped up the cards. And at this point, like, that judge call also took quite some time. So at this point, like, we're already past time being called, and we still have our time extension for Game 3. And then after we start Game 3, my opponent immediately double supporters. Like, they use Arven, shuffle their deck, and then they, like, research and discard their hand, draw 7, all of that. And the judge was sitting next to us and was watching our game at this point. And then, so we didn't really even have to call the judge. He was already there. And, yeah, so they started trying to settle that as well. And this took, like, even more time. So at this point, by the time they got that settled, it was just a warning. And he just had to take back the research, and they revealed the 7 cards and shuffled them back and all of that. But by that point, we were already like 20-25 minutes past time being called, and we still weren't even in turns yet. So then they actually paired all the other matches while we were still playing, and they put us in as a tie, but we still needed to finish our turns. Luckily, we still had like a 6-minute time extension or something. We didn't get any more time extensions, but I was just like playing super fast because we're still at the start of game 3, and luckily my opponent kind of had a dead hand, so I was just able to flame body 3 times, and I won on the very last turn of time. It was very stressful, but I barely got away with winning that one. So it was definitely a very confusing, very weird situation, but I ended up winning. However, they had originally put me in as 3-1-3 after this match. So going into round 8, I was playing against someone who was already out of day 2, and they just said, yeah, since this is a win-in for you, I'll just go ahead and scoop. Good luck in day 2. So very nice of my opponent there. He definitely didn't have to do that, but yeah. Jose, if you're somehow watching this, thank you very much for giving me the win there. Very nice of my opponent. So I am 5-1-2 going into day 2. So I need to win all 4 matches to make it into top cut. And round 9, I'm against a Terrabox deck. And game 1, I full bricked. I lost in like 2 or 3 turns. I'm pretty sure that I like benched a few Pokemon and passed. They went like Torrential Pump, knocked out 2. I went Draw Pass. They went Sob onto my Reshiram. I went Draw Pass, and then they went Torrential Pump for game. So yeah, I bricked game 1, and it was super fast. And then game 2, I was able to win with like some League HQ shenanigans. I don't think my opponent was expecting the second League HQ, so that definitely won me the game there. And then going into game 3, we tied. I feel like I definitely could have played a bit faster this match, but yeah, I don't know, I just didn't really. Yeah, I think I definitely could have just played faster and probably been okay. However, we were still like kind of early into game 3, so I don't know if it even would have mattered. I don't know if there was really that much I could do. I probably should have played a bit faster though. So kind of disappointed to tie that one, but if I win the next 3, I can still potentially bubble into top 32. Round 10, I hit a Slowpoke. This is the Neo upper build with like a 1-1 Dusclops line. And this is another matchup that I think is actually pretty close. Game 1, I was in a super good position. My opponent had... So I had 2 prize cards. My opponent had 1 prize card, and their board state was just 1 Dragapult and 1 Duskull, and that was it. So I Iono'd them to 1, hit with Virtuous Flame, and if they don't find a boss, and they already have 2 bosses discarded, if they don't find boss off of their 2 cards with no draw support, then I win the game, and they found boss. So that was very, very unfortunate for me. But then the next 2 games, like game 2, I'm pretty sure my opponent just bricked game 2 and scooped pretty early. And in game 3, I actually was also kind of drawing poorly in the early game, but I ended up kind of being able to make a comeback. So I ended up winning, but yeah, I ended up winning against the Slowpoke. So at this point, I'm 6-1-3. Round 11, I hit a Goldango to Dunsparce. Yeah, so game 1, I was able to just win the prize trade with, like, using Backdraft with, like, black belts and stuff like that. So I just won the prize trade game 1. It was a pretty close one. Game 2, my opponent really didn't draw very well. They never actually got a Goldango on the board, so they were, like, attacking with the Dunsparce EX. And I think at one point they even, like, charged up the Fez, because they just couldn't really find the pieces to get a Goldango on the board. But yeah, it was still kind of close. I think they got down to like 1 or 2 prize cards just by attacking with the Dunsparce and Fez. However, I was able to like spread enough damage around to where I could end up winning the prize trade. It was still kind of a close one though. I definitely think my opponent played well for not being able to really draw into what they needed. But yeah, it was a well played match, for sure. So this is my win-in for top 32. I'm against a Terrabox, and this is another situation that was kind of unfortunate where my opponent kind of made like an error. Game 1, they had like 2 prizes and I had 3. and then they accidentally drew their card before promoting. So they got a double prize loss for that. Kind of unfortunate because I won game 1 off the double prize loss. I think I still definitely did have a good chance of winning if they did not get the double prize loss, but when they did get that DPL, that kind of just sealed the deal for me. So it felt kind of bad to win that way, but I feel like I had like a lot of matches this weekend. I had like, 3 different matches where my opponents got DPLs, so it's kind of weird. Usually it doesn't happen that much, so kind of weird that it did this time for some reason. But anyways, I won game 1 just because of that, and at game 2, I was just able to win with like Iono League HQ stuff. So yeah, I ended up winning. Like I said, I bubbled out at 33rd, and then someone in the top cut got disqualified. So I ended up making it into top 32. So currently I have 625 points, I believe. So if I can get top 64 at NAIC, I think I should have my invite locked up. But yeah, there you have it, guys. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe.